Okay, welcome to Stories of Alberta Military History. I am Lieutenant Colonel retired Robert Mackenzie, and with me is Captain Don Gerling, who's involved with the local cadet corps. And today we have the youngest person we've ever interviewed. That's Chief Warrant Officer retired Avery White, who just stepped down and aged out of our local 2313 Royal Canadian Army Cadet Corps as the RSM. And welcome, Avery. And if you're wondering why he isn't in uniform, when you age out, you have to turn it in. And Avery, when did you join the Cadet Corps?
I joined the Cadet Corps in 2011 on the first week of September, which was their first recruiting night.
And how old were you then?
I was, at the time, I was 11, but the Corps said you had to be 12, but considering that my birthday was the month after, they just said, okay, we'll let you join right now.
And how long can you stay in the cadets?
You can stay in the Cadet Corps until you turn 19.
So you retired this October?
Yes, I did, on the 22nd.
Okay. Don, do you have...
Oh, yes, I do. Of course, I remember Avery when he started, and what my impression of you was very shy at that point in time. What was your impression of your first year in cadets?
I actually really did enjoy it. It was what I thought it was going to be.
What part of that first year sticks out as your most important aspect of it, or the most interesting aspect?
I would probably say the drill team, because they had just started it up, and they said it was their first time in a few years after they stopped it for a while, and then we went to our first competition and we ended up getting third place, which I thought was really good for a bunch of us new guys in our first year of doing drill, and ending up getting third place in a competition.
What is a drill competition, Avery?
Basically, the drill competition is when a bunch of other corps because we were the Southern Alberta competition, so Army Cadet Corps from Lethbridge, from Calgary, Brooks, we would all meet. For the first competition, it was in Calgary. All the drill teams would present their skills in their competition. We all had a basic routine, the first one that we had to do, and then we would have a freestyle drill, which is what the Corps made up themselves. And then after all of the Corps have done their run-throughs, the judges would judge. They'd call everybody back up. The top 3 teams would go to Edmonton, and then if you won Edmonton, you basically won the Southern Alberta drill team competition, which we have actually done multiple times.
So, as you moved through your career, how do you think that the training that we provided you assisted you in your personal development?
Well, with all the stuff that I've learned, what I didn't know before and now after the Army Cadets has taught me a lot for personal skills, how to speak, how to plan ahead, basically I learned a lot of basic human skills that you need for, say, like a job interview. Teaching an example, like teaching a class, taught me how to speak in front of people, so it would basically be the equivalent of trying to get a job interview. When you speak to them, you have that readiness and know how to speak to them and what to say.
How did you feel about your self-confidence when you started as opposed to now as you've aged out?
I was really shy, as you said you had thought of me when I was first joined, but as I found out when I got aged through more, I found, hey, I can be myself here. So I became more self-confident, making lots of friends and basically getting the skills that I needed for being more self-confident.
Now, a Chief Warrant Officer is the highest rank in the Cadet Corps. What are your responsibilities as Chief Warrant Officer?
As the Chief Warrant Officer, your responsibilities are you give orders from the officers, or I would lead the parades. I'd march them down. For an example, on Remembrance Day, I led the Army Cadets with Captain Bradley, and we would do CO's parades. So I would basically, I get them on, we march around, and then I would go talk to Captain Bradley. We would inspect our troops, do our wards, do our march off. It's basically, you're just the top person. You have a lot of responsibilities with the younger, well, not so much younger, but your senior cadets, and then they have theirs with the junior cadets.
So it's a hierarchy that you interface with the warrant officers, sergeant majors, and sergeants, and then they're the ones who are responsible to give the training to the junior cadets.
Yes, that is correct.
So your responsibility is to develop the senior NCOs in the cadets corps more than anything.
Yes.
Okay.
So, what was your highlight? What really sticks out in your mind? You did 7 years, which is amazing. Most don't make it from 12 to 19. What was your highlight, do you think?
I would probably say doing the drill team, because I did it for my whole cadet career. I thought that was probably the best thing I've done in cadets, other than becoming the RSM.
Now, we talked about, Lieutenant Colonel Mackenzie talked about the rank structure. I'd like you to explain expand it, so that the people that are viewing this will understand how it works. Tell me your experience and explain the rank structure as you understand it.
So what I know about the rank structure in Army Cadets is when when you just joined to at least Master Corporal, you're basically just getting the skills on how to become a leader and getting people to participate and how to, well, I'd say, you're basically learning how to begin to start teaching classes. And as you get from a sergeant to a chief warrant officer, a sergeant to a warrant, you learn how to teach classes, how to make classes, and then you're teaching the lower ranks from Master Corporal to Corporal how to become leaders with the younger cadets, show them discipline, responsibility. And then from Master Warrant Officer to Chief Warrant Officer, you're teaching your senior warrant officers and sergeants how to become leaders. So when they become the Chief or Master Warrant Officer, they know how to teach the other lower cadets when they get there.
So now we go on an exercise. Describe a typical exercise, say the fall exercise that you would do. What activities would that entail?
Some of the activities that we would teach would be how to use the pot and stove, how to set up either the 3-man or, depending if there was snow, the 10-man tents. So we would teach them how to set them up properly, and then we would watch them do it. If they needed assistance, we would tell them what they're doing right and wrong. We would also teach them, we would take them out from the actual campsite into the forest, and we teach them specific classes like how to make an improvised shelter in case if you get lost in the woods and you need somewhere to sleep, how to build a fire without matches you can use with the flint and steel, how to use a map and compass. We would set up routes that we would go on for hikes, and then we would teach them how to set up their own, and then they would make their own little hikes. And then we would ask them, how did you get to this point? And then they show us with the map and compass, oh, you do this grid reference and you get from there to there, and how far is this to there? And it also all depends on what season it is. If it was like, say, the winter FTX, we would take them snowshoeing, how to stay warm properly. We would use different stoves, so we would teach them how to use those ones as well. And then for the spring FTX, we would go on a hike, either it'd be 3, 5, or 10K, and we would teach them how to properly pack a rucksack so it wouldn't hurt your back over time. And yeah.
So that's the outdoor side of it. A lot of it concentrates on local training. You do a lot of outdoors.
Yeah.
And develop the basic skills to live in the outdoors and be familiar with it, that a lot of the city kids don't get now.
Yeah, that is very sad, but very true.
So the training then on your Thursday night training plans, how is that set up?
It's set up by our seniors and our officers by the officers would give us our classes, and then we would go from whoever was teaching whichever seniors were teaching, they take the star levels. So there was green, red, silver, and gold. Green stars were the lowest within their first year. Red stars were 2 years, silver were 3, and gold were 4. And they would take their classes, and they would either make a classroom with tables and chairs. They'd get what they needed if they were teaching map and compass. We would get compasses and maps, and we would teach them whatever specific class they were doing with map and compasses. If they were doing a presentation, we'd either take them to the big classroom or we'd get the projector and the laptop, and they would watch whatever they were being taught. If they were being taught how to properly take care of their uniform, we would bring out, say, an ironing board and an iron, and we'd teach them how to iron their pants or their tunic, or we would teach them how to polish their boots properly. And it all just depends. The more advanced classes go with the higher and the more years you've been in. So if you teach a green star, if you're teaching a green star map and compass, it would basically be, hey, this is a map, this is what you can see on it, how specific the details are, what kind of map it is, and this is a compass, this is what the parts are, how they work, what they do. Say to a gold star, as they would be, oh, you guys are going to make grid references and you guys are going to make a hike for our next FTX.
And what other emphasis does the cadet program profess and work towards?
It basically helps you get, it helped me with a career opportunity because I joined the Canadian Armed Forces. It basically, through that time that I was in, it taught me the skills that I needed to do that.
You feel more comfortable in leadership position
Yes.
than somebody who hasn't done it. Are there any trips the cadet corps took that stick out in your mind?
Yes, for our drill team in 2015, we went to Florida, Orlando, and we did a drill competition at the local air cadet base that they had there. Other trips that I hear that they're doing right now is they're fundraising, so a few of them can go to Vimy Ridge.
In 2019.
Yes, I think that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Mm-hmm. What do you remember about your trip to Florida? I mean, you did a lot of interesting things when you were down there. How many cadets went down?
There were 17 of us, including Captain Chris Gerbrand and then a few of the cadets' parents that came with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then our warrant officer, Ron Heffernan, when he was here, helping us with drill.
Mm-hmm. And what were the results of your drill competition down there?
There was only the two teams, which was us and their corps.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up winning, but I mean, it was really we both did really good. I'd say it was harder to pick between the two of us, but we ended up winning in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say we did really good for that. And then the week after that, we had our first drill team competition in Calgary. So the 2015 Southern Alberta drill team competition. and then we ended up getting first in that. And then 2 months later, we went to CFP Edmonton, and then we won it in Edmonton.
That's for the Alberta Army Cadet League.
Yeah, and that was for the Kiwanis Cup. I think that's the one it was.
Okay.
So one of the things that the cadet movement tries to instill in young people is physical fitness. Can you describe what that entails and how that is accomplished in the Corps?
In our Corps, what we do on the first of every month is we will either do physical training tests, which consists of push-ups, sit-ups, the beep test, sit and reach, and then the other odd time we would have a sports night, so we would either play dodgeball, soccer, frisbee, hockey, pretty much any kind of sport that the cadets would want to play. The main game that we always play is dodgeball because everybody seems to enjoy that.
So at the beginning of the year, we run a physical fitness test of what you've just described, and then we do it throughout the year. Correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So for yourself, did you notice, because it's one that we score, did you notice improvements in yourself and others with respect to physical fitness?
I did, honestly. From when I first joined, I didn't have as good a stamina as I did now because I would work on the beep test because I'd want to get the highest that I can for badges and fitness badges and everything like that.
Now the fitness program, and I know that you're one of the few cadets that made it through the whole career with not going on one of the summer camps, but does your scoring on that physical test, is it a prerequisite to some of the summer training?
Yes, it would be for some of it. I can't be too specific because I didn't go to a cadet camp. I wish I did though, but I could imagine yes, it would.
So from your own perspective, it is definitely provided you an opportunity to improve your physical fitness?
Oh yes, definitely.
And has it created a desire in you now that you're out to continue to maintain a level of fitness?
Yes, I have. Yes, I've been going even after I've still been going to the gym all the time, keeping up my stamina, my fitness for the Canadian Armed Forces and just everyday life.
Now you mentioned you are joining the Canadian Armed Forces. What particular corps are you thinking of going into?
I was either going to go into artillery or infantry, but at the time when I joined, they said, oh, we don't have any spots available for artillery, so you are just going to have to do infantry. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I can do this. Just need to get to know what I'm getting myself into, get myself physically fit for it, and just basic stuff, just prepare myself for basic training.
Do you have any idea when you will be going away? Have they given you an indication?
I have no idea at this point. They just told me the last time that they're picking contracts for basic training, but they said it could be in January, or it could be in June, or it could be even next year. They didn't say a specific date, just whenever they'd have a contract specific to the field that I picked, and they're like, oh, he's doing infantry, we have a few infantry contracts available, we'll message him and let him know.
So one of the other aspects of the cadet objective is to create an interest in the Canadian Armed Forces as a potential career. Do you think that your experience in cadets was the catalyst for you wanting to join the Canadian Forces?
It's 50-50. I wanted to do it since I was little, and cadets made me want to do it even more, just because I've seen what cadets is basically a small part of what you actually do in the actual military, and I really enjoyed it. So yes, it had a huge impact on me wanting to join the forces.
Now, what about the element of firearms training? You had some of that? in the cadet movement?
Yes, I have. We have our marksmanship team, which shoots the Daisy air rifles. We have shot Lee Enfields out in CFB Suffield. A few of us Gold Stars, I think this was 2 years ago, we got to go out to CFB Edmonton and we got to shoot the C7s that we went to with the reserves. They were doing their C7s training, and us Gold Stars got to shoot some of the C7s, which was, I thought, really cool.
So we actually did, you actually got all the basic safety drills and training from the reserves here prior to going on that, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you had to meet the same standard as the regular Army?
Yes, that is.
Before you were allowed?
Yep.
And you liked that?
Yes, I did, very much.
So now your whole 7 years, have you had a part-time job?
Yes, basically as soon as my second or third year I got a part-time job, and then I was doing that in cadets and school, and then now since I graduated 2 years ago I've just been working and just recently aged out of cadets.
Did the skill sets you learned in cadets assist you in getting a job?
Yes, it did. With, like I brought up earlier, with the job interviewing, it taught me how to speak properly in front of my boss who was doing my interview at the time. I felt more confident doing the interview than I did before I joined the cadets.
What about the aspect of community service? What sorts of things has the Cadet Corps been involved in that regard?
A few years ago, we've done this a few times now. Around November, what we have done is we went out to the burial site out by the airport, and we would rake up the leaves and clean up the garbage around the soldiers' burial site, and we would put some poppies on them, and we would do fundraisers, and which we're actually doing right now. We do fundraisers for the Cadet Corps. We do some for the community. I'm just trying to think of the big one we did a few years ago. I can't remember what it was, but we did it for. Oh yes, we did one for Colton Gerbrand's family when Chris passed away a few years ago. We did a few fundraisers for him and his mother and his two brothers.
No, I think summer games. Did we do some participation in that as well?
Yes, we did. We helped out with oh yes, and also the winter games. We did. We helped set up, take down. We did concessions. We did pretty much everything they needed us to do, or whatever they wanted us to do.
And one of our core sponsors, as you are aware, is Kiwanis, that we provided some assistance with them as well.
Yes.
And the Legion. What sorts of things have we done with the Legion?
With the Legion, we have done. I'm just trying to remember. It's been a little while. I can't really remember what we've done with the Legion.
Happy sales.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, the poppy sales. We do those at the mall and a few other places around town.
So, if to sum that up, then the Cadet Corps, one of its aspects of it is community service, providing assistance to the community in various ways. Would you say that's an accurate way of summing it up?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
And in ways of ceremonies, I think we've been asked to take part in various ceremonies. Is that something also that takes place?
Every year we do the Remembrance Day ceremonies. We do a few up by the airport where all the soldiers are buried. We have done some for Remembrance Day at the Legion out in Redcliffe. We do the change of command downtown at City Hall.
So a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
And what about your interaction with the regiment, where our home is here?
You mean like with the reserves? Or?
Right.
Yeah, with the reserves, like I said before, some of us Gold Stars, we got to go up with our local reservists and do some training with them.
Let's take you back to the different star levels, and you talked about the goal. I think you mentioned Gold Star Challenge. Can you explain what that is and where you went and what the experience was there?
Oh, our the Army Cadet Challenge. We basically what that is a few cadets from every corps in southern Alberta, a little bit of the middle. We would go up to CFP Edmonton, and it was basically like one giant field training exercise, except on the base. What we did is we did a few competitions with a couple of the corps. The big one that we did was we had all the Arctic tents, and each corps, so there's about, I'd say maybe 20 groups with 20 tents. And what we'd have to do is we would all take the tent and we'd run across the field, maybe about half a kilometer. We'd set up the tent, the Arctic tent, and we would get approval from one of the officers, and if we didn't do it, we had to fix what we had to do. We'd take it down and we'd run it all the way back. Another obstacle, we had the obstacle course there too, which was, I think it's the standard one for most militaries. We would start by going up a ladder, we jump down, we we crawl underneath some barbed wire for about maybe 50 meters. We would do some balancing stuff, run across a log, go over a wall, and it's just a basic military course that they had up there. And then the next day, what we did was they gave us all maps and compasses, and they said, go find all these letters. It was basically like unscrabble. You have to find all the letters around the base that they had set up, and using the skills from map and compass, it would help us find all the letters and all of the locations. And every time there was somebody there, they would ask us certain questions about what we did as an Army cadet and all that kind of stuff. And then the next day, we just had a giant parade, and we all went back to our homes.
Thank you very much, Avery and Don. Thank you. And thank you for joining us in this edition of Stories of Alberta's Military Service.